Hello, everybody. I have a great guest today. Really great guest. His name's Lon Ballinger, and he's the author of a book called Party Boys. And he has the street cred to write this book. He has been in the entertainment business for 45 years, and some could say counting. And he created the iconic Webster Hall here in New York City, along with his brothers, and has done, really shaped the New York City nightlife in so many ways. And in his book, he shares a lot of really good stories and insights. But what I want to be talking about today with Lon in particular is in a day of AI, in a day after having society locked down and people not being able to go out, I'm a firm believer that the space where people will always want to grow is anything that involves connection. Anything where we can connect with people, laugh, appreciate sounds, music, atmosphere. And Lon Ballinger is an expert at this. So we're going to talk to him about hospitality, entertainment, what it takes to be in the nightclub business, and more. So stay tuned. Hello, Lon. Thank you.
Well, thank you too, Diane. Thank you for the great introduction. And I'm honored to be here with your show and to talk with you about what happened in the nightclub business and over the 45 years I was in it, and to tell you the reasons why I wrote this book, which I kind of have taken on as a bit of a mission. Because after I was successful, I was at Webster Hall for 30 years as a 3,000 person nightclub, and it was always near at the top of the pecking order in the city.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to document, after I'd finished being there for so many years, I realized that it had been an interesting journey. This was about 2 years. I sold it in 2017 to a big music conglomerate, which was Barclays Center, and they were the Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment. They wanted to get a footprint in Manhattan. And I'd been there for 30 years, and I was getting older, and I'd had my first grandchild. And I realized that, there are windows of opportunity for people in their lives, and whether you choose to take that window of opportunity or not is your choice. So I made a decision that it was our time to step back and let the new world order take over the.
Let me ask you a question. Windows of opportunity. I talk with a lot of my guests about going through doors, recognizing those windows. Would you advise someone to recognize a window of opportunity?
Well, we were at the very peak of our game. We'd been there for 30 years, but we'd just come off the best year we'd ever had. We were so popular and so successful that it was like, we were getting older. We'd been there since we were young men, and we were getting older. And that was a window of opportunity because we knew that there were people who deeply, deeply coveted our business, and that we would have an opportunity to leave well done and in good shape. And, you leave when you're at the top. You don't leave when you're going down to the second or third tier. So there's no guarantee that you always stay at the top because things might happen or situations arise. So that was our window of opportunity for us,
Now, getting to the top, you did reach the pinnacle of New York nightlife, which is, Frank Sinatra sang about it. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. It's a tough town on countless levels.
Well, they cheer you on when you're successful, and they'll kick your ass out the door when you're not successful. And I tell you that a lot of why I wrote this book was a lot of the reasons we were successful is because we were essentially Dudley Do-Rights. Maybe it was our Canadian heritage or whatever it was, but we followed the order of law. We, you talk about Studio 54 for being an iconic New York City nightclub. It was here for 17 months. And then the owners went to jail for stealing the government's money. the limelight. That they got in trouble for drugs and stuff, but they basically got in trouble for stealing the government's money. Every club, one thing that I knew from early age was, you can negotiate with the mafia, you can negotiate with many people, but you can't negotiate with the government when you stole their money. So that's a crime, and you're going to suffer for it. They don't mind. They'll punish you badly if you don't pay it, but at least you didn't lie about it, and you didn't try to deny that you did it. So I think that was a big reason why we stayed on board. I also never missed a police precinct meeting in 28 years of operating that club, and I didn't go down to tell everybody I was there. I went down to respect the police, to let them know that I was very aware that they were there and I was here and I was a big elephant in their jungle, and that I had to make sure that I didn't turn around and step on the little deer or the little mouse, and that I could understand what everybody else might be going through too. So that was a large part of our, and we learned this in Canada. We were 15 years in Canada, so we learned that, Canada was different than America. I want to bring that up for a minute too.
My husband's Canadian, so there is a difference.
Yeah, there is. Well, the difference between our constitutions, the Canadian Constitution and the American Constitution?
I do not.
Well, there's a significant difference. In Canada, our Constitution is built around the rights of the minority. In America, the Constitution is built around the rights of the individual. And there's a big difference between, you having to get 12 or 15 people together to make a complaint about something. The laws are the laws. In America, you get to make a complaint just by being an American, because it's your right to say whatever you want to say to whoever you feel like saying it to. And that it takes up a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
And causes a lot of confusion when there's that thing. And not that it's a bad thing. I mean, I'm just telling you there's a subtle difference. And both work in their own ways. But that was the thing that we were always dealing with, is individual rights of people. And we have there was a large consortium of those kind of situations and challenges that you were constantly dealing with, which was, I think, it was a large part of my 30 years there, was always keeping the peace and compromising and making sure that everybody was looked after. And in here, it's a very litigious society, where in Canada, it isn't such a litigious society. And so you have, that's a big thing that we had to learn. The first year we were in business back in the 1990, 91 maybe, it was all about suing us for we had $300 million worth of lawsuits our first year in business. And
$300 million?
Yes, it was just all nuisance stuff, but it was just like there wasn't health insurance for people, and they'd blame you for a little slip and fall and need to get their spinal injuries taken care of, and it was pretty crazy, And so was
that patrons, employees, both?
Patrons mostly,
Oh my gosh!
It was like people just trying to, and really they sue you for 30,000 or 30 million, but they want 3,000.
Right.
They want their health insurance. They don't have health insurance in this country, So you had to kind of like make a decision. You're going to hire lawyers and go through all this, or you're going to give them some money. And so there was all of that learning process, that kind of stuff you never had to deal with.
Well, not only that, they actually don't teach that in business school either.
No.
You went through the business school of life and experience.
Well, that's why the reason I wrote the book was to kind of explain about these kind of situations, that there is solutions and there is answers. It's called compromise and empathy. It's called putting yourself in that other person's shoes and saying, what does he really want here, and then going to him and seeing if you can make peace.
Those are such huge missing. It's almost like you used the word common sense and compromise. Those are two things that are, I think we need to see a little more of personally.
Well, you've got a society, in my book too. And I have a lot of good lawyer friends. I have many good lawyer friends. I love them. I have a high respect for them. But I think that America's the way it is with the legal stuff because of lawyers. I think, you know what is that old saying about lawyers? A bad lawyer, you know, the deal just keeps going on and on.
Yeah.
A good lawyer goes longer and longer. You know, so I think that it's really a lot of it's about that stuff because people get inspired to be angry. You know, like in divorces, you see people going through the. Why are you taking your children's money and wasting it? Why don't you just mediate and get it over with? You know, but once you got into the game, you're done. You know. I talk about my book too, and you know, when I sold my business, the lawyer bill was $1.5 million for essentially changing a lease over to another company, and so that was like that's what I kind of go, okay, what's this all about now, you know, and it's really because the numbers are big and their fees can be big, you know.
What are the biggest changes you saw? Let's just take the 30 years in New York City. From 1991 or so, when you took over Webster Hall or created Webster Hall, because it was the Ritz. So you'd start Webster Hall with your brothers correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Peter,
and then you...
Doug and Stephen.
Okay. So now you're 30 years in. 30 years, New York changed a lot from 1992. Yeah. What year did you sell?
2017.
Okay. So, wow. Yeah. I mean...
It did. And that's why I thought I had the right to write this book.
Yeah.
Because I thought that I had navigated that and those challenges that came along with it, particularly when the internet came on board. Because the internet had a massive impact on music and still has. And it was really, again, about, you know, trying to find where you fit in. Where do I fit in? And a large part of my book is about trying to, you know, how do you pivot? How do you change? What do you look for? What can you do? How can you keep your brand relevant? You know? And I tried to talk a lot about that in my book. So
how to keep your brand relevant and how to find the events you're hosting. You know, because if someone, let's say today, doesn't follow Webster Hall, they might, you know, it's not like you used to pick up the Village Voice in New York or one of the publications and see all the places where people were playing. There were ways you could always find it out. Now it's almost like you have to go to each place.
Yeah. Well, there's been a big change in culture, too. You know, when we first got in, our generation was the young generation. We were making the decisions on how we were going to entertain ourselves and what we were going to do. But then the next generation comes along and they got different ideas on that. So where I used to be able to charge $25 or $30, you stand in line, I searched you, I let you in to buy expensive drinks and pay high prices for coat check. And, you know, when they came of age, it was, well, what am I getting for my money?
Right.
Well, what's in it for me? You know, and that was a good question that their parents never asked, you know. and so, of course, you've got to pivot. You got to think, well, what do you want? So that's why we moved quickly into electronic dance music, knowing that the DJs would be the stars. We started a record label back in the 1990s because when we first came in, it was just line them up. They're coming in, they're going to dance. And then 4 or 5 years into that new millennium generation came of age and they wanted something for their money. So that's when the big DJ power came in. We hired Skrillex and Deadmau5 for $500 each, you know, and they were just kids and they were setting the new standard of music. And that's what and if you didn't have a Deadmau5 or a Francis Dillon or a Dillon Francis, or if you didn't have an Avicii, or if you didn't have a Tiesto or somebody coming, they weren't interested in you. So you had to learn to adapt to that kind of thinking. And of course, we never lost the old tricks, you know, the high wire trapeze acts, because we always knew that there were going to be enough people, the tourists, just to be aghast with that stuff. So it was really kind of mixing the old with the new. We never really went off what we were, a 4-story funhouse on the hard edge of the East Village. You know, that's how we presented ourselves. ourselves. The place that was for every New Yorker, not just the rich white people, but every culture was invented. We were the first guys to bring hip hop in 1992 because we saw the kids gravitating to it. And we knew this was coming, and we didn't have any axe to grind with anybody. So they were coming in, and soon they took over the entire club.
Yeah.
And they were great. And then we brought the Hispanic culture in and the Latino music too. And people loved it. And when tourists came in from all over the world, they got to see this and experience it and go home knowing that they had just danced with a bodega owner of New York City, a taxi driver, or maybe Andre 3000.
How many nights a year were you booking live entertainment?
300.
300.
Maybe more.
Wow.
We very seldom had, because we had 4 stages.
Right.
And we got so well, we became so successful because of this way we built the club with the 300-person starter room, then the 600-person when you grew. And then when you got really big, you went up to the 1,500-person room. And then after that, you were a superstar because we started and the careers of many, Black Keys, Lady Gaga, Halsey, Cage the Elephant, Francis and the Lights. All these acts came out of our studio, and then they moved up to the next room. And then you knew they blew up quick. They'd start, and then something where they get their music out there to the mass, and boom, But they could always walk away saying, "We played Webster Hall last night."
Yeah.
And that was a big deal to a lot of those bands. And if they couldn't draw flies, we never said anything to them. We thanked them for coming, and we filled the rider we had for them and told them that we'd be here for them another time. And that's the way it kind of worked. And I think that we were very, very wise for making our place diverse. And sticking to that, because our only rule ever was with anybody was behave yourself. Because if you get me into trouble with the police, you can't come back.
Well,
But
that's a
if you're-
good rule.
If you're okay, and you look at, I'm not going to ask you how much money you spent. I'm not following you around. I just want you to make sure that you don't do anything that's going to get us into trouble. And 99.2% of the people conducted themselves.
How do you think you spread that word?
With, we don't, if we catch you doing something, we don't call the police, but you have to leave. You've got to go now, And we're not saying you can't come back, but, maybe 30 days or whatever it would be on the offense there. And we didn't like violence. And I had this I was known for a very tough door policy. But it was because once I let you in, it's on me.
Right.
Everything's on me because I let you in. I invited you into I sold you those drinks. I was responsible for your conduct the moment you walked in. But when you're out on the street, you got to be, if you're not ready to behave yourself and stand in line and do what the security asks you to do and follow the rules, then you can't come in tonight, And it wasn't about being mean. It was about protecting people. And we made a point from our background too. I could never have a security guy on board that was going to hit a customer or bully a customer because they came to your place to enjoy their night. They came to have fun, and you're in the hospitality business, hospitable. It's about being kind and generous. And even if they do mess up a little, we got so many of us, can't we just kind of keep them in control until we got them calmed down a bit here, And we had a big, extensive way of managing people. That was a huge part of our success was our security. And we paid a lot of money for it. And we knew the people. Some of them were there for 15, 20 years. The same people, the same faces, good people. And I can tell you the security took their job serious and looked after people. A young woman came in. Maybe she had too much to drink. Maybe she didn't have dinner, and she said it was 2:00 in the morning, and she'd snoozed out on a bench. It's possible, but with a security guy would know that, and he'd be there guarding her until somebody came to get her and find her. Or we could look after her and get her home and do what it was. But we knew to watch for those those kind of things, and to be very careful with people. You're selling alcohol to 3,000 people coming from all over the world with their own agendas. And, you've got to maintain them and treat it serious and be on it. You can't be drinking and partying and lolling around in the basement. You got to be knowing that you're making a night for people. And at the end of it, another thing I wanted to say too, that I'm just gonna throw in before I forget, was, when I sold Webster Hall, and I bought that little hotel up I was telling you about up in Athens, and I was about 2 years in, and my grandkids were growing up, and I thought, geez, they never got to see this. I got to write a story about it and let them know. So I started writing a story about it, and it kind of grew from there, And I knew that I had to tell the real reasons about the success. It was about what I told you about the police and
respect is huge.
And
that was a great point. The security, owning that when somebody walks in. What are some more?
Yeah, there's many, many more. When somebody's mad, just listen. You don't have to answer their question right then. Let them get it out. Let them vent and tell them that you know about it and you're going to deal with it. Come back and see me tomorrow, and let's talk about this. And we'll get to the bottom of it. And and have that. Do your best to compromise all the time with people, and to remember that old saying about the 2 ears and the one mouth. And once it's come out of your mouth, you can't take it back. So don't tell people you're sorry. It was in the heat of the moment and that kind of stuff. You said it. You meant it, So be very careful about that, And I think that was it. And knowing that, they talk about drinks being high nowadays. A lot of the reason drinks are so highly priced, too, is because they don't want you to drink a lot. They don't want the liability that goes with alcohol. So there's a lot of that involved in it too, because they'd rather you buy 1 or 2 drinks and get most of the profit from that than to buy 5 drinks and then have to deal with somebody stumbling down the stairs, So there's a lot of things that you don't know that goes on that is really about basically protecting people. And looking after people properly.
If somebody was to think about starting in the nightclub business today,
get another line of work.
That was going to be my question. But see, I really believe that live entertainment, like I prefaced this with, is something that the human spirit, no matter what goes on,
I
people
think you're
love
right.
to connect.
But I think what you can see what's happening with the young generation, they're into fitness and goodwill. The thing that's being really successful now, and then we are nosing around in too, is the outdoor ninja gyms and the saunas and the Viking camps, and they socialize there too, and they have ideas. So I think that what'll happen is socializing will morph, and it will change. And as I was saying earlier, the new generation seems like they're set on wellness and health. Good, that's not so bad. The boomers drank too much, and their dads drank too much, and it was time to slow it down a little bit and maybe change and diversify with what we think is fun and exciting now, And I see that now what they do that's become very big is festivals, so that a kid doesn't go out every weekend to see a band. He sees them all at one time, and that's his thing. 3 days of seeing bands was out of my year, and maybe a few other live shows that I was interested in. But maybe they don't go out every week, My friends, the people I know that are still in the live music business, they tell me drinking is way down in their places. Makes sense. Their drinks are high in price, of course, but also because of the gummies and the the mushrooms and the other little things that kids are using to get themselves stimulated.
How do you think promoting events has changed?
Well, it's all social media. Where in the old days, that's the world I came from. I wrote about it here, too, for anybody who wants some good old school stuff.
Yes, and we are talking with Lon Ballinger, he is the author of Party Boys, and he along with his brother, whichever camera we're looking at right now, for 30 years ran Webster Hall, iconic New York night spot.
Yeah.
And
we ran the Big Bop in Toronto.
Yeah.
We built that. We actually helped create the modern new nightclub business in Toronto. We were young, and you know, a large part about the book was to inspire people. I wanted to inspire young people, especially people who don't have much, who you know, they don't come from the Golden Sperm Club or whatever. You know, they're going to have to work and make things happen. It's really about inspiring young people to know you can do it. You know, that was my goal in it, was because I didn't think we were anything fabulous, except we had the tenacity to do it. You know, we just went out and decided we could do it and believed in ourselves. And
why?
Because we didn't have a choice. We had no education. We had no money. We came from the wrong side of the tracks. We were dirt poor. We had nothing except dreams and hope. And we had a mom that believed in us and thought highly of us. And, you know, she always was driving into her home. You're going to work for yourself. You got to work for yourself. You can't work for you'll never get any money working for other people. You got to work for yourself. So we pooled our money. I told about the wormy old apples we sold on the side of the road, and the lottery tickets we sold for the Christmas turkeys and then how we pooled that money and we opened a little pizza place from, you know, it's all here in the book. And, you know, we made that work because it had to work. Failure was not an option. There was no failure, never even came up in any conversation. We would be on the street, poor, dead poor, looking for handouts if we didn't make this work. You know? So it was necessary. So we had to work long hours and think clearly. And when if this part wasn't working, well, then let's shave the edges a little bit, you know, let's see if we can fit it in this way. And lo and behold, if you keep at it and you believe in it enough, it does work. And you shouldn't do anything if it isn't a good idea. It's got to be a good idea.
How do you decide if something's a good idea or not?
Well, pizza. Everybody loved pizza. There wasn't a pizza in our little town. Towns made sense, you know, worked. People came and ate our pizza. You know, I wrote it in the book how I waved the guy down on the side of the road and made him, told him I didn't know how to make a pizza. And he said, well, my brother can show you how to make a pizza. And then he showed us how to make, and they were lovely guys. If you have the right attitude and you're respectful and you tell them that, you know, I was a benefit to him because I started buying all his products off him for my pizza. So I would have been a good guy to sit and talk to and try to help out, you know. But it's really about using common sense and practicality a lot, you know, and then not overextending yourself and not saying you're going to do something that you can't, you know. And you've got to put your own skin in the game. You can't go up to people. Ask me all the time and over the years, I want to get in the music business, and inside my first question would be, well, what are you bringing to the party?
Right.
What do you got that's going to help my business? So you can't just show up and say, well, help me. I think I really like this business.
Right.
You know, it has to be more. I have 2,000 people on my list, my social media, and they follow me everywhere I go, you know, and oh, well, come on in, sit down, you know, and so.
I mean, that's so interesting because it's become such a big thing in everything, you know, how Hollywood books someone, how models get booked, you know, how who's your following? You know, what are you bringing? It becomes a two-way transaction way more.
It tells your story. It's your resume. I would tell any person, you are a brand the moment you're born. And how you decide to operate your brand is your business.
Yep.
But if you want to have a bad brand, then steal the car. Then cut the guy off. Then you got to argue with the teacher and give him a smack across the back of the head, you know, and find out how far your life goes with your brand, you know, with the brand you're creating. Or be the guy who created the good brand, who helped the little old lady up the stairs with the groceries because it was the good thing to do, the right thing to do. And the next thing you know, she's telling her CEO son-in-law about you, you know, and I'm just thinking that you've got to constantly be cultivating your brand. And as any person, the first thing you do when I'm selling my house and I see a name, the first thing I do, I go online to see, is this a reputable person that will be buying my house? And if he's not a really reputable person, maybe, sure, whatever, But if it's a reputable person, then I'll read some more, So I think it's really important that, my book, I try to drive home how important it is, your own personal branding and how you treat that, I learned that. I learned that by being in the liquor business and knowing that the police were really watching you and the citizens are really watching how you conduct yourself, The first 30 years, the first 15, 20 years of my life in the business, I was a wild man. I was in it for the fun and everything. But then I quit drinking when my kids were little. And I said, I got to be serious and I got to run this business right. And I can't make a mistake. And that's how it happened.
You just made a transition there, and it was right where I wanted to go with this, because what I want to understand, you have such incredible wisdom you're imparting on this. I want my 21-year-old and 25-year-old and all their friends to, I want everybody to hear this interview, because you're really sharing what I'd call lessons from the school of hard knocks,
and
real life.
And also, that business we were in is tough.
Yeah.
Alcohol,
so
people,
that's
young
what I
girls,
want to know.
half-naked people.
Exactly.
It's like you got to watch people. You got to be careful. You got to maintain your integrity through it, too.
Oh, integrity, that's a big one.
Yeah, you really do.
How do you
That's
define integrity?
By just doing the right thing all the time. You're always saying, is this the right thing? Am I sure? I would say that why we never got into trouble with the police was because not that things didn't happen, but it was always about what did you do about it the moment you knew about it? And if you can answer those questions right every time, then nobody expects miracles. That we're living in a world where stuff happens. People make mistakes.
Yeah.
Wish you hadn't done that. But when you start lying about it, I always say to the kids, don't lie. If you don't want to say, if I get that, I understand you don't want to tell anybody. You want to tell your dad. I'd always tell my kids if you get into trouble, and you don't want to tell the police anything, you tell them, you don't lie to them. You tell them you want to speak to your dad.
Yeah.
And call your dad and or mom or whoever. But if you feel uncomfortable about answering questions and stuff, don't lie. Because the moment you lie, you can't go back.
Yeah.
It's over. You're done.
That's such a good rule.
So I think that's
the first rule of crisis management, which I've done for 30 years. Stuff happens, but it's all in the recovery, and how quickly do you gather the facts, zip the mouths, one spokesperson.
Yep. We had one lawyer that did all our talking for us at Webster Hall. He was a full-time guy. He was a great guy, Richard Powellchuk. You're an awesome dude. And he was with me for almost the whole 30 years. From the time he graduated college until he became a very successful lawyer now in Long Island. And, I had a lot of respect for Richie, the way he handled things. And, we had the integrity from my mother. My mother was a hard ass. She was, my mother was at the front door of Webster Hall almost every night for 20 years.
You're kidding me.
Yes. She was that little old lady wearing the Webster Hall t-shirt. And the security guards were shaking their boots.
Do you know I can picture this?
Yeah, she was there forever.
I didn't realize that was your mother.
Yes. And they wrote up. And when she passed at 96, we had a big special night for her at Webster, and thousands of people showed up to give her their send off. It was beautiful. But she was very, very strict with us growing up, and I learned that there's nothing wrong with owning it. You made a mistake. You're not. Nobody's expecting you to be perfect, but don't be handing it off to other people. Own it. It's yours. I'm going to try hard not to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I want to talk about that, but at least own it and have the courage to own your mistakes and stuff. And you will be surprised how that creates your integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates the person who you'll do business with and you want to talk with. And you believe when they tell you something. And because you want to believe when they tell you something, but you've been cheated and lied to so many times that you're wary of that. So if you can know you're dealing with a person who has integrity and has a record, then of trying to be truthful about stuff,
You just again said something so interesting. How do you stay not jaded?
Oh, that's up to you as the individual. You can't, there's no miracle person walking around behind you sprinkling magic dust. Surround yourself with good people, keep yourself involved with other people. Keep your ears open. I talk about the internet. And I got onto the internet really early because some kid at 2:00 in the morning comes up to me and tells me all about it. And, instead of saying, get lost, I'm busy here. I sat and I listened to him and he had me in 5 minutes, he was in my head, and I told him to come back and I was way ahead of everybody on the line. We were the first nightclubs to ever be online, to ever be selling our tickets online. And I remember Ticketmaster called me up and said that I was selling my New Year's Eve tickets online. And they said that they owned the ticket business on. I had no right to be doing that. And I was like, are you out of your mind? You don't own the internet, whoever you are on the other end of the line. That's for us to decide, And I mean, they built such a monster, but they did it by being a bank and lending people money. And, they built it the smart way, another way, their stranglehold on the internet. But I think it was really about, fight fiercely to be independent. I'd always look for what the other guy wasn't doing. And I tried to do it, If he was doing all this stuff, then I'm going to try a little of this over here so that maybe that'll intrigue them to be interested in me, So I think it's always about trying to find different opportunities for yourself, When I came from Canada to New York, my mind was, I'm building a brand. I'm building a brand called Webster Hall. I built a record label. We sold 3 million CDs, little mixes that we made. And they were popular as hell. We charted them all on the Billboard dance charts, No record label, no help. They would look at me, go, huh? Where's Steve Tyler? But there is no Steve Tyler. There's a bunch of college kids flying pigs upside down and pulling the cows' tails to have them moo with the music. It's a different world order that's coming up here. So I think we got on that very quickly, and that gave us our street cred. Probably gave us street cred for 10 years with the young people. So it was always really about trying to keep street cred.
Very real current. You were very good at surfing with the shifts through time.
Well, I would go to all the music conventions and conferences, and I'd pay really close attention, and I would take the young people with me because I know that they'd have a good ear and they'd know what was going on. And I really counted on young people. For all the years, even now at my age, I still feel like when I was at Webster, I could sit in and talk with all of them and listen to them and talk and listen, and that they respected me for doing that, for listening to them. So that's what I always say, that, how I kept peace, 90% of how I kept peace with people, just listen. All they really wanted me to do was listen to them. And if I listened to them, that was most of the battle. I'll do what I could do, I'll do the best I can. If it's really important, I'll get right on it. But if you're just venting and trying to get it off and you want somebody to know how you feel, which is most of what it is, they just want you to know how they feel. And if you can have the patience to listen, then you're going to be okay.
That's a really good customer service rule for every business.
Yeah, listen.
And families and everything else in life.
All right, I think it is. I'm a peace-loving person. I just want the peace, almost everything. So
What do you think was the biggest transition for Lon from 1991 to 2017?
quitting drinking,
Okay, big one.
yeah, big one. Yes, I became a much better person in my own way. I'm not perfect. I wouldn't tell anybody in the world. I don't think trying to go for perfection is any kind of a goal, but just trying to be patient. I'd always say to anybody that there's another term that I throw around a lot, and it's about it's always the guy who ends up being the leader is the emotionally intelligent. He's the guy who can stay calm and he's not flying off the handle. And instead of taking the credit for himself, he hands it to the other people because he knows it respects all there and they're not getting all that attention. So he shares it with them and they like that somebody acknowledged their work. So concentrate on your emotional health and your emotional wellness, that you're able to give people good answers and you're able to share the glory, and make them want to be with you and work with you. Do you know, Diane, we had 60 people who never left us for the 30 years we were there.
That's phenomenal.
They'd come back and they'd be, they'd be gone and come back and go. And, a lot of the roadies that worked with the bands would go on tour and then they came back and they became our loaders again. We'd have spots because another group might be leaving. We had 170 employees.
Wow.
I never got sued once in all those years for anything to do with
Your employees.
fast ones on employees or not paying somebody properly or arguing with them about it. If they felt they deserved it, I gave it to them. I don't want you to be mad at us, about anything. What, for a little bit of money, we could be friends and just...
Now, I'm curious. You did this with your brothers.
Yeah.
So this was a family affair.
Oh, yeah.
Your mom at the door. Are you all of the same demeanor?
No. Totally different. Totally. My brothers had other projects on the go. They weren't there much for the last 20 years. They showed up and came in and showed up and they were fine and looked after things. But I was the chief guy, I sometimes think of myself as a benevolent dictator. If there's any way to describe it would be.
I can relate to that.
I tried to be kind as I could, but I knew what was the right thing to do because I was tapped in. I knew I was there. I'd been there. I witnessed it. I saw it, and so.
Now I'm curious, wait a second, you stopped drinking about 20 years ago?
30.
30 years ago.
30 years ago last month.
Well, congratulations. That's a big achievement. So, okay. And then 20 years, your brothers kind of became less involved. Was there a connection there between the drinking, the brothers going off in the different direction?
Well, they had other projects. They had other interests. But there could have been some of that, too, with it.
I asked because one of my favorite movies was Some Kind of Monster with Metallica and when James Hetfield quits drinking and how it changed the dynamic in Metallica's recording of one of their albums.
Well, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that. But my brothers are talented guys. And I would have never had the success I had without my family and without those guys. And they were good players and good, smart guys. They're very successful guys now, And
are they also in the nightclub or entertainment and hospitality
some
business?
form of it, They're into bagels and organic garlic and food and restaurants. And yeah, they're still up to their elbows in things, They're doing great. And they're with their sons, and they work with their sons, and I work with my sons for a little bit on little projects too. So we've got between us 12 boys.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
you've got a rugby team or a soccer team,
they're all
definitely a hockey team.
They're definitely, they're all up there. They're all clever, hardworking guys. So we tried our best to.
Did any of your sons come into Webster Hall?
Yeah, they were all there. And people would say to me, why didn't you sell off to one of your kids? And that was a funny business. It wasn't that kind of business you could just hand off, like that. And the politics were changing. I saw the politics changing. That's why I sold. I saw the, liability insurance had become so crazy. And not just that, but the big guys like Live Nation and AEG, Bowery Presents, they started stockpiling up venues. And so it's impossible unless you were
To be
part
independent.
of the team, They would tell a band, for example, if they were having a festival in the area, a band that I would normally play at my place couldn't play at Webster Hall because that would take tickets away from their festival, and they would pay them 4-5 times what I could pay them. So I saw that coming up.
Right.
And even though the bands loved us and were favorites and would always come back and play with us, and I know I could have kept it going. I really do know that. But I knew it was also time to really smell the roses and to pay attention to what was going on and rather than try to lasso a bunch of young kids to do a business that their dads had created,
It's very different,
Yes.
and there's so many things that you learn over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people that can't imagine having just passed their business that they grew to their children just because of different things you've learned and different things you've incorporated over the years. It was something you grew.
Yeah. I think that was it.
I don't think all businesses are meant to be
that's
passed on. There's a benefit of selling and, what comes next.
Yeah, and it was a dangerous business.
Yeah.
It was what their dads did was a dangerous business. It was one of those businesses that you had to walk lightly, and you had to listen and pay attention. And I'm not sure that was in everybody's best interest to keep going down that road, So it was a good decision. We made the right decision, and they're off doing their thing now, growing up, and I'm proud of all of them, all the boys and stuff they learned. It was a good place to learn a lot of lessons too.
Yeah.
Old grandma being there correcting you.
That is priceless.
Your shoes, get your shoes polished. It was good to have an old grandma there. My sons and nephews and niece was there. My niece was there too. It was like a big family business. They used to call it the Webster family, which I always kind of thought was cute. And the staff was good too. They were so good. We had great staff. They became a big part of the success of that place. I think was their attitude when you walked in. You felt like you were in amongst friends. Even if you were just a stranger walking in from some city on the West Coast and you heard about us,
how do you create that? Because that's the magic of a restaurant you want to go back to. It's the magic of a event venue.
Well, you have to have a signature
charisma. There's something that is intangible that some people can figure out how to create.
I call it a signature product. You got to create your own signature. Like our little place in Queens we make the most amazing burger at the center. The kids are lined up for it. It's our burger, which sells the French fries, which sells the beer, which sells and they like to hang around because the bartender knows their names and likes them. You've got to build familiarity and warmth. Our success at Webster Hall, you would go in there and it would be full. There'd be 3,000, 4,000 people in there, all drinking, dancing. You're looking at their, because that's what I would do. I'd study their faces and their looks, and they're happy. They're really enjoying themselves. 1,000 of them are in for free, and maybe half of that 1,000 are drinking for free. Because they know somebody or know what's going on. And we're okay with it because it's priming the pump for the 2,000 that are coming behind them, the tourists that are going to be paying full cover for everything. And we're going to do fine with that group, and
that's quite a bit of mathematics you just laid out. We're getting close to the end of this, but that's a very interesting mathematical play that I don't think most people think about.
It's called the loss leader.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
The loss leader. My dad taught me that trick years ago when we were kids, and we built a little store after we sold our pizza place. We bought a little old store in our hometown because my brother had started a laundromat on one side, and the old gal that owned it was dying, and we bought the building with the money we sold the pizza for, and my dad went in there and told us about the loss. We built a variety store beside the laundromat, and the town never had a variety store, the milk, chocolate bars and whatever. So he built it, and we sold the cigarettes for less than we paid for them. Because the people that was the lost leader. When you come in the cigarettes, you pick up the milk, you pick up the eggs, you pick up the newspaper, you put it on, you buy a couple chocolate bars for the kids. And, so that's how we learned how to, you come to my place. I want you to come back. Well, how am I going to get you to come back? I gave you a card that said, if you get here before midnight, you're welcome to come in for nothing, Oh, so we have a huge, big line of people.
I remember that at China Club when I first moved to the city in 1984 to get that card.
Yes.
It was like, okay, you're golden.
Yes, once you had the card, then you could get in, and you knew the door guy. Yeah. You see him. Oh, hi, Charlie. Yeah. Oh, hi, Diane.
You felt like you belonged.
Right.
You felt important.
Right. And it would become your Monday night ritual or whatever it was.
It was Monday nights.
And that's what we did. We picked up on that, and we always had a complimentary policy. And, and we really respected our customers because we knew that they could have gone anywhere. But they came to our place. They got all dressed up, and they're looking forward to their night out. And they came to our place. We got to look after these people. And they're all so friendly. We want you to come back next week. And we know it's a lot of money to come back in the door. But for you, it's okay. Get here before midnight. And so I think a lot of it was, knowing and picking up all those things that we learned, And even to this, you go into my place, you see my sons run a place. You come in, you have a drink, and he's giving your little guy something to eat. He's it's like
it's hospitality.
It's hospitality.
Yeah.
You want to go into that business, you better have the heart for it and the spirit for it. Don't. And just try to know that that's your job and the job you chose, and that you have every intentions of doing a good job to the best of your ability, and keep off your high horse.
Lon, our time is up, but I want to say if 1% of what you just shared is in this book, it's a must read. And I have a feeling there's a heck of a lot more.
I took 2 years to write it. And I did spend a lot of time. I had a guy. It was Don DeVito. He was the vice president of artists and signing artists, and they're looking after them for Sony. And he was the guy who told me he was the guy who managed Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen and Aerosmith. And he said that the only way those guys get a job done, get their album finished, is they do it every day.
Yeah.
They do it for, even no matter what's going on in their lives, they go in and they're working at something.
Work on it every day.
Every day. So that's what I knew to do with that book, but what he told me. So every day I do some little thing. And I think, it wasn't quite like that. It was more like this, and try to get it accurate. Right. So I wrote a book that I hope was accurate, that stayed away from glamorizing celebrity. I got a celebrity section in it, and I have a bunch of other, gossipy little stuff there.
Well, there will be all kinds of stuff because sadly we're out of time. Okay. Lon, everybody, I have been speaking with Lon Ballinger, and he is the author of Party Boys. This is absolutely an episode that I think is going to be heavily shared. It is completely worth watching from start to finish. And there will be links to Lon's website, to where you can buy his book right below this, on Amazon, right below this. So thank you very much, Lon.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. I really appreciate you taking the time of your day.
Oh my gosh, went too fast.
You too. Young man.
Went too fast.
You. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Dian Griesel. This has been the Silver Expedience Perception Dynamics podcast. My guest today has been Lon Ballinger. He's the author of Party Boys. He along with his brothers and his mother and his other people in his family and lots of great employees, managed Webster Hall for many years and other venues as well. And lots of information below. Hit subscribe and share this. Thanks a lot. And by the way, cannot miss the fact that we are in Manhattan Center, another New York City iconic venue. Thanks for tuning in. Hit subscribe.